Hey, everybody, it's Rob, National Fire Radio. Very excited tonight to be joined with Jeremy Donch and our guest, Lieutenant Jason Ilowite. Ilowite and I know each other quite a bit from our days in Hyattsville, and I'm really excited to have him on the show tonight because he's got an interesting background. Firefighter in Loudon County, lieutenant there currently, also served in Burtonsville as a live-in up in Montgomery County back in the day, and we crossed paths at the Hyattsville Volunteer Fire Company, or as I like to call it, the Wayward Home for Lost Firemen. But Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Man, thanks for having me, fellas. I'm excited to be here. This is cool. I was actually, admittedly, during the entire length of COVID. This has been my first Zoom, so I'm figuring it out. And
this is tonight. Like
it is. It is, man.
Honored.
Yeah.
I wish so much that this was my first Zoom. I hate using. I mean, it makes life so much simpler because doing this, we'd be able to interview you tonight, without using Zoom. When we were doing all our studio podcasts, it was trying to get people into New Jersey and local and so on. So this is actually, it's exciting. It's the double-edged sword of Zoom. People rely on it too much now, but it also opens the door for us for a lot more possibilities. So, brother, thank you for being here tonight with us, man.
Thanks again, guys. Cool. I'm excited.
All right, Robert, take it away, man. Let's lead chapter 1 with this guy, or what? What are we doing?
Jason, so how did you stumble across fire trucks and get into the fire department and the fire service?
Oh man, I think I don't have any super defining moment. Probably more cliche than anything. Like little kids think fire trucks are cool, and I was no different. I ended up one of my cousins actually got into the fire department. Really, the first one in the family. Like I had my aunt is on the job with FDNY EMS, and then my cousin got on the job in Delray Beach, Florida. So it was always kind of, there was some exposure there, and that coupled with just seeing the fire trucks go down the street, it just seemed like really early on, it seemed like something that would work out well for me.
It's a really kick-ass thing to do, man. That's it, plain and simple, right? I mean, that was a huge hook for me. I mean, I was fortunate to have it in the family, but I mean, everything I owned was a fire truck, and it just seemed so cool to me as a little kid,
Yeah, and I think, we could probably all agree, like we just never grew out of that,
right.
Like the shiny red fire truck, the sirens, just the fact that those dudes are, would get to wherever they were going and were willing to do whatever they needed to do. Like, I think for some of us, well, hopefully most of us on the job, like that's what stuck around, So I'm definitely no different in that respect.
And I love that because it makes me think, right, as we dive into tonight, the reason why you're here is because we know you're dialed in and we wanted to capture your story. And for me, like I often think about like the hook. We all had the same hook for the most part early on in our career, whether career, volunteer, whatever, in the fire service. Your love for the fire service, falling in love with it, the shiny trucks, the sirens, the adrenaline of it all, the brotherhood, the camaraderie. And then I wonder like how it skews from there, because I know myself and I can see it in your face tonight and just meeting you tonight, but I can see it in you that like, you still have it. Like you still enjoy it very much. And I wonder sometimes, and this is a conversation for later or another time, but people split, right? And people remain in love and straight as can be with the job. And then others kind of veer and get lost. And I always wonder how that happens,
Man, I wish I had a good answer for that.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most hot topics around the firehouse kitchen table from time to time is like just keeping that love for the job, and you see guys like they get 10, 15, 20 years into the job and it seems like they kind of forgot what made them start in the first place. And I don't know, man, like just like I can't really speak to 100% how I'm going to feel in 15 years from now, but I could say with pretty good confidence that I'm just never going to feel that way, man. Like it still really spins my gears. Like I love everything about it, and I don't see how that's going to change for me.
Is there a certain part that you like, is there one thing that you love more than the other that like really like to get you tuned up?
I mean, it's probably a fire department cliche thing to say, so to speak. But I think the unpredictability of it all, like there's just something really unique that we, as firemen on the job get to deal with going to work and not having a single clue what the day is going to bring for us, like an accountant can't do that. They're going to go to work and they're going to crunch some numbers and put in the hours and they're going to go home. And I think, for those folks, like, that's awesome. That makes them happy, but it doesn't work for me and it doesn't work for all of us, So just the fact that, man, like, you go to work and, you don't know what you're going to get into. Like, the day could bring anything. I think that's what does it for me.
So for unpredictability, like, what got you to make that unpredictable move of walking into a firehouse and getting an application and starting to walk the path,
Yeah, man, I think I just had such a draw to it. As I started to get a little bit older, I say old respectively, we're talking like 15, 16 years old. But I think at that point I had such a draw to just really trying to get an understanding of what it was all about that I couldn't not do it. I had to go to the local volunteer fire company and I had to at least try, like, see what it was all about. And it didn't take long at all to figure out that's where I needed to be.
The hook was pretty instant, huh? You walk through the door and couple runs out on the rigs and you're the hook is there.
Oh man, like between the runs and, being a 16-year-old kid and, hearing guys bust balls around the, at the kitchen table and, just in general, I'm like, man, this is a club, so to speak, that I want to be part of. Like, these guys have something to teach me, and like this is a whole lifestyle here that I could, like, I want to take on. So yeah, dude, man, like
that is such a good point. It is a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's a lifestyle. I mean, you do take this on and you came up through the volunteers ranks and then you went right over to career and you made it your life's work, if you will, to be a career firefighter and to be in love with the job. And I just, it is a lifestyle. I mean, everything outside of the firehouse in my life really revolves still around something of the fire service, right? I mean, starting National Fire Radio, but also, buffing fires, driving past the firehouse when you're on vacation with your family, like, oh, there goes an engine, all that stuff. But I think that the people that are dialed in get that. I mean, it really is that lifestyle, Jason. A good hit, man.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
Like, as a side note, like I wouldn't ask my wife what she thinks about it being a lifestyle. She might have a little bit, 100%. Might have a little bit of a different response for you, but no, like, totally agree, man.
How about your kids sitting in the back seat of the car and they go, "Oh, Dad, another firehouse, huh? Oh, exciting, right? Oh man, red fire truck, right? Yeah.
We were the whole family, like, we were out walking around downtown Frederick, Maryland the other day, like, super nice day, like, everyone's out, at the restaurants and whatever. And the city firehouse down the street took in a run for, a vehicle overturned right down the street. And man, like, they came, the engine and the rescue company, like, they came screaming down the block. And like, I'm 10 times more pumped up than probably anybody else, just looking like a complete buffoon. But yeah, man, like, it's just, it never goes away.
But and that just circles right back to the original part of this conversation is that was your draw from a young age. And I was talking about this the other day on another podcast. And I said, I still love the excitement, the euphoria of it and everything that goes with that. And I think that even today, I mean, you refine your excitement, but you still get excited over going to work or going to the firehouse or going out on a run or seeing a truck whiz by. It's kind of the same thing as even when you were 10, 12 years old, no?
It's exactly the same thing, man. And like, I think, now, kind of from my perspective, when I see, trucks go by on the road and stuff, I think I start really thinking about, like, what is the public's perception of the fire department? And, that's good. And why does the public love the fire department so much? And why does everyone get all jazzed up when, the big loud fire truck is screaming down the road? And man, like, I think it's because, like, the public expects from us, to do a tough job that not a lot of people want to do. And, we're going to go help people. So like, I really, like, that's what keeps me going now. It's just thinking about the public's perspective of the fire department and trying to live up to that from riding the seat of the fire truck. So,
and that's that maturity, right? I mean, that's where it goes from day one, walking into firehouse, to really refining and understanding your position and where you are.
Totally, man.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Awesome. So Rob, where do we want to go? I mean, let's talk about, I know you mentioned Burtonsville, right? That was one of your first volunteer companies.
Yeah.
And that was a live-in program.
It was, yeah. It was like a lot of the firehouses, volunteer firehouses in the DC metro area.
Yeah.
You can join and you could come, you know, one night a week, 2 nights a week, whatever, or you can be a live-in if you were, you know, a full-time student or you had a full-time job. So, yeah, man, that really was like the beginning of everything for me. Like that was a unparalleled experience, completely invaluable. Like, you know, it only lasted a handful of years, but like I wouldn't trade that for the world, you know, and especially being a live-in at a firehouse in the DC area. Like I would recommend that to any young guy or gal that is getting their feet wet in the fire department and really wants to figure out what it's about. Like it's just a tremendous experience. So
I thought the live-in experience, not that I was a live-in, I did it one week when a bunk room in Hyattsville would go to the beach, but like watching all of the guys in Hyattsville and the girls go through the live-in program and seeing how they turn out on the other side, you know, it's almost like it's unofficial, you know, education. Like it's a high-level college class that you cannot reproduce because.
Well, it is, man. You hit the nail on the head, man. Like in, you know, at work when new people come on the job and they get done with recruit school and we start finding out, you know, a little bit about their background and, you know, it comes up like, yeah, I was a live-in at this, you know, Prince George's County Firehouse, or I was a live-in here. Like I look at them differently, you know, because I know that those guys at 18, 19, 20 years old are taking in an insane amount of runs, like runs that, you know, guys who just go straight career right off the bat could only dream of. So, I mean, it really is an incredible jumpstart to somebody's.
For some perspective, Jason, when you joined Burtonsville, do you know what off the top of your head what their split was between fire and EMS and what they were running?
Like percentage wise?
No, just like the rough numbers. Because I know, like, I think when I started in Hyattsville, it was like, you know, I think it was like 58 to 6,000 runs for the firehouse a year.
Yeah, Burtonsville wasn't too far off. Like I don't know exactly what it was when I was there, but somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 runs a year. And it was a, you know, engine, ladder truck, rescue squad, and a medic unit there. So I mean, it, you know, wasn't insanely, you know, just absolutely burn you out busy, but it was steady, you know, really steady and with good calls.
So Jason, let me tell you, I'm 44 years old. I'm super pissed off that the internet was invented when I was in college. And I didn't have the ability to even understand that live-in programs were a thing. Because I can tell you, when I graduated high school, I would have packed my bags and I would have moved to one of these busy houses and I would have been a bunk-in and I probably would have had a whole different lifestyle. Not that I regret anything I've done in my life, but the thing is now is there's so much availability for people to understand that programs like that exist. When I was in high school, I mean, I got my first email address my freshman year of college. And so by then, and then I was away at thanks, pal. Thanks. You're just
sorry.
Calling me old is what you're doing. But if you think about it, and I remember like, I just remember as like when it started coming out and you start looking at fire companies and you start seeing like the PG County area and the DC metro area that you talked about, you know, and then you start seeing these run numbers and then, oh, holy shit, guys live there. It's volunteer, but they live there. Like it was such a mind blown event for me to understand that that was an opportunity that I didn't know anything about because we just didn't have the opportunity to know about it, you know?
Totally.
And I think now, you know, like I think of how many guys I know that have decided to go do that and to get that experience, and which putting yourself into those companies, because a lot of people that listen to this podcast, they're all over the country, right? All over the world. And so like they might not be familiar because the bunk-in program is not the most common concept across the country, across the United States for areas. So I think it's really unique, especially for that DC area, because the call volume is so high that it allows for just aggressive programs like that.
And that's the thing that I think too with the programs. Like I see other places across the country starting live-in programs, which I think is excellent. But if you are a young firefighter and you have the opportunity to come and take classes, whether they be online or in person in the DC area, and experience that call volume, you can't duplicate it. Like I tell guys up here all the time, they're like, well, why would you do it? I was like, dude, there's a couple times where I went down and I did 3 fires in 16 hours. And I don't mean like I just sprayed water with a water can. I mean like kick ass. Like I don't understand how guys in Detroit do this every day, but man, this is awesome.
It's an incredible experience. It has to be. And I think that's what's awesome is because the people when you have programs like that, the people that subscribe to those and the people that go there, their dedication and commitment is just over the top, but it gives them, I think, such fulfillment because that's what they're looking for, that fast pace, you know, that hustle, but that also sets them up for an incredible future, typically in the fire service. Cause a lot of these living guys do move on to career departments, right?
Totally. I mean, that seems to be the thing. Like it's not always the thing though. Like there's a lot of guys that are doing college programs and living in the firehouses. And I think, you know, Rob can think of the same guy I'm talking about. Like he's an engineer and was a live-in for several years, you know, but that does tend to be where things go is, you know, guys get in those live-in programs and they end up on the, you know, on the career side of the house eventually. So,
well, other than that hook, right? Other than that fast pace, that hook at a young age, being a live-in, right? You get in there and it's just that go, go, go. Let me ask you on another side of things, like what else did that do for you? I mean, it obviously created and you fostered an incredible love for the fire service, but like as a person, as yourself, right? Like for those 10 minutes outside of the firehouse, like what has that done for you? Because I can just imagine how powerful it was of an experience to really shape who you are.
Sure. If I had to sum up that entire thing, that entire answer in one word, I would say maturity, right? Like you're taking a 18, 19, 20-year-old kid and you're teaching them effectively about the world through the eyes of a firehouse. You know, like you don't get away with anything. You're held accountable for doing your part, carrying your weight, cooking meals, cleaning up, making sure the rigs are well maintained and taken care of and checked out. And people are legitimately relying on you on a day-to-day basis. You know, people, the community, the citizens, and you know, the brothers and sisters in the firehouse are relying on an 18-year-old kid to do their part and to not let people down. So, you know, from what I've seen, from my personal experience and some of the guys that I've seen come up and live in programs, I think you end up with guys that just grow up a lot faster. And I think that's what sets them up so well for these career jobs because they know exactly what to expect. They're not going into their interview, you know, like a completely inexperienced, you know, just totally naive kid. You know, they've been held accountable for however many years and they've grown up, you know. So yeah, that's it for me, like maturity.
And the accountability probably too also comes in from that like interpersonal conflict that happens when you get eight to 20 guys living in a firehouse. There's going to be agreements. There's going to be. I remember getting pulled into a bunk room meeting once, and I was like, "Hey, I don't belong here." And Sven's like, "No, you're part of this. Shut up and sit down." And I was like, "All right." And like an issue was hashed out, and it was super uncomfortable. But it was like I was like, "I love this. This is great because they're figuring it out."
Yes, dude. Like, yes, like that is, man. I couldn't have said it better myself. Like, I can't speak for the fire service as a whole, but a lot of what I see. These days, I think it's fair to say, like people in general avoid conflict.
100%.
And I'm not saying, you know, like we should be confrontational to be confrontational and to be complete jackasses to one another. But people in general shy away from the difficult conversations and they'll take the easy wrong over the hard right. And especially
now more than ever, brother. 100%.
Yeah, man. So, you know, Rob, like right to speak right on what you're talking about, like, especially at Hyattsville, man, like those guys did a phenomenal job. And you're right, man. Like it just overall life skills, like learning how to address conflict, figure out issues, you know, work things out. And then not only that, but like get better because of it. I mean, it was a tremendous thing to see. Yeah, just a really cool experience.
And I think when you touch on accountability, like I don't know much about Burtonsville other than some of the, like, you know, I've always heard a good reputation with the program, but like there was accountability and how like you couldn't, and I think this is what a lot of people struggle with when they come into the live-in programs in the DC area is traditionally you just can't come in and be like, yeah, I'm a fireman from here and here's my certificate. Like you have to show your skills. Like I had to show like Tristan and Matt Leonard that I knew what I was doing. And like, it was even worse for me because they're like, you're a career fireman who works who's from Poughkeepsie. Like you better know how to do this. And I was, oh shit. But like, that's the other side of the house when it comes to that whole accountability, because now, well, you can't fake it until you make it. You have to know.
And
man, like,
go ahead, brother.
Oh, sorry, fellas. Like, yeah, I agree with you, man. Like, it was a very distinguished environment of, like, it does not matter who you are and where you come from. Like, you'll make it here. Like, when the guys say you make it here, and the only way to do that was to be a competent fireman. Like, that was it. And I've got so much respect for, that system of doing things. It was just really cool.
Rookie book.
What a great experience. And so that has really set you up for a lot of success then. And from Burtonsville, and you guys mentioned Hyattsville. I mean, there's a few here on the list, but at the end of the day, you end up going after your love of the fire service as a career. And you end up you test out in Loudon County, Virginia, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was one of those deals where, like, getting out of high school, there were, I don't know, 6 to 8 fire departments in the area hiring. I knew that this is what I wanted to do. Like, I didn't even take my SAT. Like, I knew that I wasn't going to college, at least not yet. So, man, I did what a lot of guys do. A lot of young livings do. Like, I applied everywhere.
Yep.
And Loudon County was the first department that gave me a call and gave me a shot. So, like, who was I to say no?
Exactly.
So, yeah, man. Like, oh, you want to, pay me $18 an hour? Like, this sounds fantastic. Like, it beats what I'm making currently,
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. No, that's cool, man. And that was what, about 13, 14 years ago, right? You said?
A little less than that.
Okay. About 11 years. I'm reading my notes here, and I'm getting ahead of myself. So
yeah. Okay. 10 going on. Yep.
And you're currently a lieutenant. So let me ask you this, right? So you go from a very fast-paced volunteer department, and then you get your career job, and then go through the academy, right? You do all the probationary stuff. You get in there. What was your take on it?
Man, like, and the guys who had me as a rookie would probably be rolling around laughing right now, because I think it's pretty fair to say that, like, I was a shithead to a degree. I was, at the time, I forget how old I was, but man, like you said, like, I just came out of being a live-in.
Yeah.
All I cared about was riding fire trucks and going to fires. And like, it took me a little bit of a time to realize that, like, hey, like, yeah, that's the job, right? But there's these things that, like, you have to do on the computer. Like, it's just a fact of life. Like, there's these smoke detector installs and all this stuff. So, like, I probably had a really, I don't know if cocky's the right word, but I was a dumb kid who's like, man, these guys don't care about going to fires and whatever. And it took me some time, but I came to realize that I worked with a really, really good group of firemen. And, they didn't get the chance to show it as often as an 18-year-old live-in who, was riding fire trucks day in and day out. So yeah, it was an adjustment. But it was one that I needed, because I needed to be brought down a couple things.
Yeah, it grounded you, right? I mean,
yes,
it grounded you.
Absolutely. When we're talking about that whole, like, grounding and, like, being brought down and stuff, like, was there a mentor in your fire service career that helped you with any of these challenges? Because that is a challenge, going from a very busy firehouse to, like, not to say where you were first assigned wasn't busy, but, like, there's 2 separate lives there.
Sure. Yeah. My, the very first lieutenant that I had, he recognized pretty early on, like, he knew where I came from. He could see where my mindset was. He recognized early on, kind of the direction I wanted to go. And, like, he started making those suggestions, like, hey, man, like, I know you don't know a lot about the county yet, but, once you get off probation, you do your rookie book, like, hey, like, you should check out going to these firehouses because they're busier, and you're going to be running more calls, and the mindset's a little more aggressive and stuff. So yeah, early on, like, I had somebody definitely kind of help me out and show me the ropes with that, so to speak. That's ultimately what I did.
Give me the breakdown on this rookie book. You brought it up. So I know a lot of departments have them. Some don't, or probably I would think most don't. I would love for you to talk about the rookie book a little bit, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's something that we've been doing in Loudon now for a long time, and it's a really structured process that takes the rookie firefighter from the end of their recruit school experience to 6 months later, when they're no longer a probationary employee. So in between that time frame, so between your 6-month and 12-month time period on the job, there's set tasks that you have to complete. There's policies and procedures that you have to know. There's skills that you have to demonstrate, and all of those things you're tested on. So it's, literally broken down on a month-to-month basis. Like, hey, month 1, here's the policies you're responsible for. You're going to be pulling hose, throwing ladders, forcing doors, all of that kind of stuff. And you take a test associated with that. So throughout the rookie book, as we affectionately call it, like there's 2 big tests that you take. You take a 3-month test and you take a 6-month test, and that gets administered by your assigned battalion chief. So, that's basically like the final sign off sort of deal.
Let me ask you this, with that book, right? Being the new kid in the firehouse, you come in, you're ready to run, man. And you got this book that you got to make sure you followed through on, but it's the mission of the company to get you through it and to work with you on every aspect of it. No? Absolutely, man.
Yeah. And like later, where I'm at now in my career, specifically where, as it pertains to rookies, I've got a really big frustration with how the culture of the fire department, maybe I could only speak to where I'm at. I would imagine it's pretty widespread, but I think we all have heard the rookies these days don't know what they're doing. And these new kids have never, operated an impact drill before, or they don't know what size sockets or whatever.
I get it.
They just want to play on their computer, and I'm like, hey man, so I was a new guy, like not that long ago. Luckily I had some people show me what I needed to do and teach me, like, man, like it's not the fault of the rookie coming into the firehouse. Now, granted, individual responsibility and initiative obviously is a big factor, but if a rookie does not do well in their probationary period, it falls squarely on the leadership of that firehouse. And I believe that firmly. Like it falls on the senior firefighters and it falls on the officers. Like it is our job to get those guys through what they need to get through.
And that take, I mean, I love that, brother. I mean, that is like right up our alley of what we talk a lot about here on National Fire Radio. And I think it's so important, but I guess I'm leading you to that point of it is important though, in your department as the mission of the company to get that probie through that book and to get them through that book well and well polished, right? Because it's a shining star on the company and the officer, no?
Totally. I mean, yeah, you're exactly right. Like it could go one of 2 ways. Like, your rookie can be phenomenal and crush their tests and, do great in front of the battalion chief and right. Aside from just optics and how they look, like legitimately know the job.
Yep.
Or it could go the complete other direction. And when it goes the other direction, leadership isn't pointing the fingers at the rookie. They're pointing the fingers at the company, and they should.
Breakdown is. Yeah.
Yeah. And they should. Like we should be the ones held accountable for that. So.
And I love that because it's the buy-in. That book is not just for the probie to learn the tasks of the department and the company at hand, but it's getting the company buy-in from the senior man and the company officer down to that rookie. That's what I love about that rookie book. It has nothing to, it has to do with the rookie, but in fact, it's about the company. It's about the buy-in of the company.
Totally, man. And like there's nothing I love more than to see the technician or the senior firefighter leading drills and teaching, because while they're doing that, they are just solidifying everything that they know about that topic as well. We all know, like you learn better when you're teaching, so it's just a really cool process all the way around.
The other night I walked around the engine at the firehouse and one of the younger kids was teaching a younger kid something. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is so cool to see like a 3-year guy work with a 6-month guy on something that just 2.5 years ago, he just went through the same thing. And there was nobody there watching and nobody was asking him to do it. Nobody said, hey, Brian, go do that. It was, and so for me, that's one of those moments where I just stopped. I looked and I was like, I'm going to back up. I'm not even going to, say anything or interject. It's like, let that moment happen.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. And, a lot of people, a lot of naysayers will give that 3-year guy a hard time for passing on whatever he has to pass on. Like, he's, his cup of coffee hasn't even brewed yet kind of thing. And it's like, man, everyone's got something to bring to the table. Like
and
that guy
was just there. He was just in that kid's seat, man. You know, like I think he's got a lot to bring to the table, and we have to encourage that, right? But it's important for that 3-year guy to know how far he can take his bits and nuggets to share. He's got to understand that too.
Yep.
For sure.
Totally.
I find that really interesting too, because I do see that concept of like, oh, this, you know, like, as you put it, this cup of coffee hasn't even brewed yet for that 3-year guy. But then I'd like think back to like when we, you know, not to circle back too much, but we talk about like Burtonsville, we talked about Hyattsville a little bit, and these live-in programs are running on people who are anywhere from the age of 18 years old to maybe 23, 24 at the most, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're doing this in a firehouse that's running, you know, on the fire side, you know, at least 3,000 calls a year, if not more. And like, they have to know. So like, if they can do it, why can't somebody why can't somebody else do it? You know, that just always made me like, because I've seen it before too in my job where people are like, well, he doesn't even have enough time on. I'm like, yeah, but he's the one who took the initiative today to get off his ass and do something. So maybe that's the topic of the conversation.
Well, I think you look at those live-in departments and they're so busy and it's so focused on the mission at hand that you can't. It's very hard. I mean, I'm speaking. Listen, I didn't go through this experience like you guys did, but I can only imagine that nobody's buying into a program like that if you're a shitbag. If you're not there for the right reasons, you're not going to last there.
Yep.
So it's that, and then they grow up quick because all of a sudden the weight of the world's on their shoulders, running out the door 20 plus times a day. They have to be dialed in and totally into it. So that 20-year-old kid or 22-year-old kid's got to grow up super fast versus that volunteer house that runs 500 calls a year and that kid makes 250 of those 500 runs. The maturity level is going to be different just because of the experience, I think.
Yep. Totally, man.
So, all right, Rob, you got a place you go, or
so what I want to start talking about a little bit, Jason, is you, like, I follow you on social media, and ever since I've known you, like, you have this affinity with tech rescue stuff, specifically ropes. You've gone around the country, like, you do some crazy shit. I see you on cranes, you know, rigging stuff up, and like, it's just like, so where did this come from? Because like, you're not only into it, but you're passionate about it, and that passion, I've watched you teach people, like you've actually taught me how to do simple systems before, and you're like, really, dude? But like, you're just as excited when you're doing that. Where did that all come from?
I'll tell you what, man, like when I was at Burtonsville as that new guy, like we had a rescue squad there. And like, admittedly, like I was, you know, and I think at that age, you're kind of just a product of your environment, but admittedly, you know, I'm like, oh man, screw the squad. Like I want to put fires out on the engine, and I want to cut roofs on the ladder truck, and, you know, whatever. And, I think as time went on, you know, especially when I got, you know, a career job and stuff, like I realized how much I enjoy, a thinking man's game. And I love fighting fire just as much as the next guy, maybe even more than the next guy. Like I absolutely love it. You know, like it's 100% the bread and butter. Like if I could do that every day for the rest of my life, like I'd be in heaven. But, you know, there's a lot of lull time in between that. And, you know, there's a lot of, at least where I work, there's a ton, like an insane amount of construction, development, just in general, just an exploding population. Right. And I really got into, like, you know, just taking initial, you know, like introduction to tech rescue classes and stuff like that. Like I really started to appreciate the thinking aspect of it. And like it really just started to spin my gears, man. Like the fact that specifically with rescue, like you can quite literally do something 35 different ways and produce the exact same result. That blows my mind, and it still blows my mind. And I think that's what I like, what I really took a liking to about it is just it really allows for creativity. I think from what I found, like more so than a lot of other stuff we do. You know, pulling hose is an art form, throwing ladders is an art form, cracking roofs is an art form. You know, but they're, to an extent, like there's only so many different ways, you know, you could do those things. When it came to a lot of the tech rescue stuff, it was just a complete open-ended question. Like it was just, you know, I could do anything and produce the same result. And I love that, you know, that just really stuck to me.
The creativity is one thing, and I get that. And I love the fact that you're like a chess player, right? I mean, you're a thinking man. You want to, you challenge yourself. I mean, you know, when structural firefighting, you're right. I mean, there's different disciplines, and you can arrive to the same outcome a few different ways, but not a multitude of different ways, and so on. So I get that. And I love how you crafted that with the creativity combined with the thinking man's game. I also, something I wrote down in my notes underneath heavy rescue, right? Because I know you're into all this, and I really want to dive deep into this.
Yeah.
I have disciplined, like, underlined like 3 times, because this isn't, you know, guys can hide on the fire ground. You can't hide in tech rescue. Right? No,
that is, yeah. I mean, yes, that is ultimately, that is true, man. I mean, you know,
and typically the guys that find themselves to get into that discipline chose to go there, right? You don't have people being assigned there. You have the people that want to learn this discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's, you know, high angle, low angle, trench, confined space, and everything in between that you guys do, right? Collapse and so on, right? But those guys choose to be there. And so they have to be dialed in and disciplined to those different segments of the job.
Totally, man. And like that exact reason that you just gave is also the biggest reason why we're disliked. Like overall, you know, and I can't speak for every fire department. I could speak for mine. But overall, the rescue companies are disliked. And there's, you know, it depends who you ask why. But in my opinion, which is obviously biased one way, you know, like it's just like what you said. Like, we got guys who are into this, they want to do this, and as a result of that, they have to attend specialized training. They're putting in general a lot more hours training, you know, than a lot of other companies and stuff. And I think to an extent, it unfortunately kind of gets construed as like the rescue thinks they're better than everybody and stuff like that. And it's like, man, you know, man, like, not at all. Like, we're just different. Like, we have a different mission, and we have things that we have to be proficient in. And in order to do that, like, we have to have guys that are gonna basically eat, sleep, and breathe it, you know? So it's just a different aspect of the fire department, I think.
I also think that rescue companies, like, if we go to a fire right now and the public's watching, and we go in the building and we come out of the building and the building burns down, like, everybody's going to say, like, all eyes were on them. And man, those guys tried real hard, but it just, you know, today wasn't their day. And, like, you know, and we can, as a fire service, we can say, like, oh, the fire had an advanced start. You know, we had some problems getting water on the fire. We can, whatever, we can come up with, like, some technical excuses. But rescue, you can't do that. Like, you look at somebody who's down a hole, and, you know, the lights are on them, and like, you have to know how to do that stuff. Like, you, and if it doesn't work, like, there's no excuse you can make. You can't say, well, you know, the collapse, it had a head start on us. Or
I mean, you know, we're in a structural fire and it goes to shit because guys aren't doing their job. We could just pull everybody out and the place goes to hell, right? Like, you can't do that. Typically when you guys are there, it's already gone to hell. And now it's time to fix that, right? Like, and I don't mean that as a shot. I mean that as, and I'm not even talking about fires. I'm talking about tech stuff. Like, when you know, you have a train derailment and you roll up on that and you have people pinned under a train car, like, it's not going to get much worse, right? It's not going to get much worse.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, if we've got a construction worker who fell off, you know, whatever it is they're working on, and they're hanging in their fall arrest lanyards, I can't just wish that away.
Right.
You know, like, I can't, you know, snap my fingers, sound the evacuation tone.
Transmit a third alarm. I just need more companies, right?
Right. And you're exactly right. And that's why, you know, at least with my guys, I think they would all probably begrudgingly attest to this. Like, I'm hard on them, you know, like, I have pretty high standards. And it's for that reason, because while these calls don't happen every day, and I don't think, you know, really any fire department can say they do, except for maybe some of the really, you know, big cities. But when they happen, all eyes are on us. You know, who else is going to solve the problem? You know, so, like, I have to, it's my job. Like, I owe it to those citizens that we, you know, might need to help in those situations, to make sure that myself especially, but my guys, you know, are completely dialed in. And totally prepared and trained for whatever it is that we need to do. So yeah, man, there's a lot riding on it. So
I've always loved the totally honest communication that happens in rescue companies because of that high stakes nature of it. Like if somebody either has even if they just like they're mentally they skip a beat and they're like, wait a second, or they're just stumped. Like it's the one, I don't want to say safe space because that's super weird, but like you said, like, hey, I'm not sure about this. Weird. And everybody kind of gets in and they put all the heads together and it is a team approach, a communicated plan, and it's fluid. And I've always enjoyed watching some of the rescue companies work because there is that communication, you know?
Yeah, man. And, you know, along with that, like all of the guys that have worked for me on these rescue companies, like the one thing that I have told them right from the get-go when I'm kind of laying out expectations, like I personally, when we're drilling in the firehouse, when we're drilling at the training center, whatever, I don't believe in rank. I really don't. And that's, you know, some people might look at that as like a progressive kind of way to think about things. But the way I look at it is, you know, we ride with 4 on my heavy rescue. Like I've got 3 other dudes with some pretty serious brain power, you know, that have a lot to bring to the table. So like, who am I to think that I have all the answers just because I'm a lieutenant? Like it's insane to me. So the way I kind of approach things like that open communication, like you're talking about, Rob, is like when we have a situation that we're dealt with, I kind of come up with an initial game plan and I run it by everybody. And I give, especially on incidents, like sometimes you just have to make a decision, right, as the officer. But yeah, like I give at least a small opportunity for some input because I am 100% not immune to missing something. So
well, not only that, but there's so many different segments of what you do. So it's like you're a ropes guy. So if you have a high angle job in a construction crane, you might be the guy on that 4-man crew that day that's the strongest in that discipline. But you know, 3 hours later, you go to a confined space job, a guy down in the manhole or something, and you got a guy that is a little more proficient in that discipline, right? So I can understand that. And I think the other thing too is in that rescue company, you guys typically have the ability though to communicate very precisely and clearly as to your action plan of how you're going to implement this rescue, right? Where on a fire ground, we typically have our jobs and we go off and we work solo quite often on the fire ground. In this type of discipline, you guys are really working as a company.
Yeah, man. I mean, when you look at the fire ground versus the tech rescue environment, like, you know, I don't know how a lot of other places operate, but we operate on predetermined arrival assignments. Right. You know, so if you're the third due engine on a high-rise fire, like, you know exactly what you're doing. And there's no talking about it. Everyone just goes to work. The tech rescue can't be that way because every single one's different. Right. So there really does have to be that collaboration as a company. And then, like you said, like a very clearly defined, well-communicated plan of action. So, you know, because there's a lot riding on it. Like the stakes are high at that point.
So what gets your juices flowing? I mean, you're a ropes guy, right? So, I mean, you like to be suspended in midair, upside down, wrestle, you know, Harry Houdini shit, or what? Like, what do you? Like, what do you I mean, truly, I mean, what do you enjoy?
You know, man, like it sounds super like cliche to say, but like I love all of it. Okay. Recently, I got into on the recommendation of a good friend of mine, I got into rope access work, which, for layman's terms, is basically what window washers do. Like the guys you see washing windows and inspecting bridges and whatever, like those are rope access guys. And I got into it because, you know, in the fire department, fire service rope rescue, like we don't really emphasize what you as the individual can do on rope, right? Like you're usually getting lowered by a system, you're getting hauled up by a system. Everything is done by the team, quote unquote. But the rope access world, it's the complete opposite. It's just you and the rope, and what work can you accomplish doing that? So, man, I went down that path pretty heavy, and I was able to bring a whole bunch of, I was able to draw a whole bunch of parallels with what we do in the fire service, you know, and like I think it's kind of expedited how we do rope rescues, how we approach rope rescues, you know, because rather than spending, you know, without getting too technical or whatever, but rather than spending an hour's time to accomplish, you know, one pick-off rescue because we've got 20 guys on the roof of this building debating how it's going to go, like I could set, you know how it is, the good idea fairies. Like I could set 2 anchors, throw 2 ropes over the side, and I could have one of my guys get on rappel and effect the pickoff rescue in 10 minutes using these rope access skills. So that, like, currently that's kind of where
cool.
I'm at.
Yeah.
We'll gears.
Do you enjoy, I mean, as a thinking man, we talked about this before, and the creativity of it, which you kind of just alluded to. I mean, there's so many different ways to get to the end result. The challenge of that probably mentally for you is probably the most rewarding. No?
Oh, totally, man. Like just, and that really comes from training, like the stuff on the, in the firehouse and on the drill ground, like just coming up with every scenario possible that I could think of, how is somebody going to get stuck in an elevated position? How is somebody going to fall over the side of a cliff or down an embankment or, on the side of a building or whatever, like thinking of all those different situations. And then for each one of those situations, pairing up 4 or 5 different ways to fix that problem.
Yeah.
Like that's how you build, like what I like to call my mental Rolodex, right? So, when I pull up on that on the street, I just start flipping through my Rolodex, like, oh, okay. I see right here, like pick off rescue from a window washer hanging on the side of a building. Okay. Got it. Like I've got 4 ways that I can do that.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to.
I love it. I just went through this the other night. We were cutting some cars up the other night, and one car's on its side. After the struts, we flop the roof, did a couple things, and then the guys are like, "Let's flip it on its wheels, and then we'll finish the sides. We'll roll the dash, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Great. Let's not just push the car over with the skid steer." I'm like, "Let's mechanically control the vehicle roll." And
Sure.
So the guys are like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's use creativity here, right? Like we have the scenario in front of us. Now let's pretend a guy's arm's stuck under it, or we have to roll the vehicle, right?" So, we ended up setting up pickets. We ended up using snatch blocks with the winch. It was just a really cool, it took an extra 10 minutes, but the guys got a whole nother idea in their brain of how to use the equipment that was already available to us, right? And then to take it further, the fun part was we roll the dash afterwards for easier for the tow companies to come get it. I said, okay. I said, let's get the large spreader, put the chain hooks on the tips. I said, we're going to pull this car back together. And they're like, what? And I go, we're going to pull it back together. And we went around the front axle to the rear axle with chains, and we, large spreader closed it. We pulled the car straight again, and the car could roll right up on the, and the guys are like, we've never seen. I said, yeah, the spreader can also pull. It doesn't just pull, like, and it was just, it's those fun moments. But what it takes is somebody with the creative mind, and that's why I can relate so much with you right now with all of this, because it's that creativity of looking at something and finding 7 or 10 or 12 different ways to accomplish the same task, but using a different method. I love it.
Sure. Totally, man. Yeah. And like to build on that, like, like I think a lot of it too is setting pretty clear expectations, like both for myself as the officer and for my guys, as far as knowledge of equipment. Right. So like, I'm a pretty big stickler with that. Like a lot of guys, they hate the numbers. They don't think they matter, whatever. I like the numbers. Like I want to know, like, the numbers after the comma of the spreading force of our spreaders and the cutters, and what our bottle jacks are, what the capacity is. Like I want to know all of that. And I also, like, what I try to impress on the guys is, like, I want to know at least 3 different ways to use every single tool on that rescue company. Because if you know your equipment that intimately, when you're faced with a situation that you're kind of dealing with the square peg and the round hole, so to speak. Right. When you know the equipment that well, it's not difficult. It's not super difficult to come up with that plan B, C, D all the way down the line. So
that challenge, though, I love that challenge. Love it.
What are some of the square pegs in the round hole that you've had in your career since you started this path of tech rescue?
Yeah, man. So one sticks out pretty strongly in my mind. We had an auto accident with entrapment, 2017, September of 2017. And what happened was somebody, total scumbag, converted old school bus into a food truck, like totally illegal operation. This guy was a career criminal, come to find out, whatever. So he's driving back from this event at a really dangerous intersection, like a well-known intersection where we've had tons of hellacious wrecks. I don't know exactly how he came to blow the stop sign, but he blew a stop sign and T-boned a sedan with a family of 5 in it. When I say T-boned, I mean like when we pulled up on scene, like you couldn't see the car. The bus was that smashed into it, and it was also on top of this car. So, like I think we all go to, get dispatched for auto accidents with entrapment, and we're thinking doors, roof, dash, like no big deal. This one wasn't that way. Like I was quickly exhausting my mental Rolodex, because we ended up in a situation where out of the 5 people in the vehicle, they were pinned so severely that every single time we pushed, pulled, spread, whatever, anytime we did anything to manipulate that car, it was causing a very severe amount of pain for somebody else in that vehicle. So just going down that normal, the normal, checklist algorithm, whatever you want to call it in your head of how an extrication should work, it wasn't working. So we ended up having to, pull some stuff out, like just the square peg in the round hole kind of thing. Like what ended up working to free some of the backseat passengers' legs was, I took a piece of webbing out of my pocket of my turnout coat. Like I wrapped it around the seat, and like a couple of us pulled forward as hard as we could, just to try to isolate a piece of the vehicle that we could manipulate without hurting other people. And like, that was the first time we were on scene at this point for 3 hours cutting this car, trying to cut this car. And that was the first time that we really made a lot of progress. Like that kid came right out of the back seat when we did that. So, I think once everybody, everyone at that point is exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever, but I think once we kind of started to see that, like, all right, like we need to venture a little bit outside of our normal, extrication practices here. Like we can make something happen. So, like that. And that was just one that really sticks out as far as, it just was not your cut and dry, bread and butter cut job for the day. Like it was just, being successful on that incident was from training our butts off, knowing our equipment inside and out, having good communication with one another, being able to maintain composure and work through problems, like it was all of that. So,
yeah. Wow. I can only imagine the after effects of that too. Right. I mean, not only the personal intake of what the situation was, but then as a company, right? I mean, you guys sit down after that and you look at each other and go, holy shit. Like, let's have some conversations, like we gotta, talk about this, figure this out and so on. But, and that's where the importance of solid leadership and a solid foundation really matter. Because too often things like that gets, it's still high fives and ass slaps and everybody forgets about it the next day. Meanwhile, there's so many lessons to learn or ideas to talk about that come from things like that. And it takes that creative mind and a strong leader to promote that conversation with the crew. So
absolutely, man.
Yeah. Cool. So, okay. Rescue squads. I mean, you grew up through them, right? So, and I'm a truck nerd, as people know on National Fire Radio. I love so, and rescues have a sweet spot for me, but you've been in departments that just have beautiful rescues all the way up the line.
I'd like to think so. Yeah. Like,
you have, I mean, you have, and with that though, comes the ability to, now command your own rescue company as the boss of your tour. And I think that's that's an impressive position, and a lot of weight comes on your shoulders because, anything out of the ordinary falls on you during that 24 hours. And, that's a big mind play. But training, I mean, as a rescue company that supports that mission, right? I mean, it's constant training, instilling those values into your guys. Is it all tour, every tour? I mean, just give me how do you like to provide training or encourage the training with your company? How do you go about that?
Yeah, man. I kind of lay my days out the same way. I try to have a plan A, so to speak, and things, all sorts of shit comes up during the day, right? The calls, smoke detector installs, public service stuff, inspections. I'm preaching to the choir, but in general, what I like to do is I like to, in the morning, like get a good, what I call fireman drill in. So we're forcing doors, we're masking up, we're doing searches, we're doing, on Mondays, it's Mayday Monday. Like we're doing something for Mayday, like no questions asked. And then in the afternoon, I try to do something rescue squad related, like something technical, and spend the afternoon doing that. So, because like you guys know, with the rescue company stuff, like we absolutely have to be really good at fires, but we also have to be really good at the other stuff too.
Sure.
So I try to spread the wealth.
So in regards to that then, so on the fire duty where you guys go, you're assigned to every fire in your county, or how does that work?
No, so we've got there's 2 staffed heavy rescues.
Oh, okay.
So on the initial assignment, a heavy rescue is assigned. So it's not always us for the whole county. Like it's the county's over 500 square miles.
Oh,
so,
okay. Gotcha.
It's whichever rescue company is closer gets the initial assignment. And then more than likely when we put basically the equivalent to a working fire dispatch on it, the other one will more than likely come as well.
Gotcha.
So.
And what roles do you play on the fire ground? I mean, do you go in as a special service and you actually are operating as such, or are you because you do Mayday Monday? I know that's a bit important thing, right? So where do you guys fall in line?
It's really interesting you bring that up because, man.
Or should we not talk about, or should we just move on?
No. I am happy. I'm happy to talk about it. So we have, without getting too crazy into it, like we have a set of guidelines for the entire Northern Virginia region, us, Fairfax, Arlington, all the big departments, that say what each fire truck should do when they show up to a single family dwelling fire, a townhouse, a garden department, a strip center, whatever. So the way our manuals kind of read is it's a little bit convoluted in the delineation of responsibilities of the ladder truck versus the rescue squad. And they kind of leave it a little bit open-ended for the 2 to be interchangeable. My personal opinion, like I completely disagree with it. Like there's the truck, and I'm definitely preaching to the choir here. Like the truck has got vital jobs to do when they get to a fire. And the way I kind of look at it is, the truck guys are getting the engine where they need to go. They're forcing entry, they're opening up, they're finding the fire, they're ventilating, they're doing all that good stuff. The way I look at the rescue company is when we get there, I've got 4 guys. We split into 2 teams. Myself and the bar guy riding behind me, we're going to the fire floor to search. My driver and the guy riding behind him are going to the floor above. So all 4 guys, should be dedicated to that primary search to make sure that no one's duplicating any effort, to make sure that the primary search gets done as thoroughly as it deserves to get done.
Right.
So it's a loaded question. Like it's funny. It's just funny because we've been going back and forth about this for a solid couple years now about what exactly does the rescue do at a fire for us. And honestly, man, like we haven't come up with a really good answer yet.
But
odd that like in some places the rescue was technically like they like I think in PGA for a while it was like it was a third due special service was how they labeled it. So it could be a rescue, it could be a truck, but if the rescue somehow arrived first in order, then they started assuming and it just like you said, there was truck stuff to do. Like you're going to tell a ladder company that they're not going to do their ladder work now because they have to assume whatever it loves to whatever stuff you put on your flow sheet. So.
Yeah, and you guys are the utility player. I mean, you're bringing everything with you, right? So the only thing you don't bring is water, but you have everything else, So,
oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, like you're right. Like we don't have water and we don't really have a ladder complement. So, but yeah, like, and that is how a lot of our incident commanders will use us as kind of like what needs to be filled in, like, do we need more lines in service? Last night was a good example. Like we had, 5 or 6 cars on fire on the 3rd floor deck of a parking garage at Dulles Airport. Like, as the rescue company, like there's only so much to search in a concrete parking garage, so like we did a quick search just because, you know, it's what we do, but we were getting lines in service. So yeah, you're right. It is kind of a utility.
Which I think is commonplace for the rescue company, probably across the board. But let me ask you this: you mentioned Mayday Monday, right? So, you know, obviously, you guys, you know, protecting our own is just incredibly important, and quite often, guys already in the building are making the attempt to make that rescue of a downed firefighter. You made a comment before about a recent Mayday you guys are involved with, and I have to think, as the rescue company on most fire grounds, you guys typically are the ones that get requested on top of the RIT if there's a separate RIT company to go get. Would you want to jump in on that a little bit? I mean, you know, talk about that concept a little bit with you and your vision of Mayday, your Mayday Monday, and then what that does for you.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, I don't think it could be understated that, you know, like for me, one of the biggest things with Mayday training is, you know, that stress inoculation training, and making our training environment in the firehouse progressively more stressful, to be able to deal with those situations, because it is super high stress, you know, for a Mayday gets transmitted on the fire ground. So, you know, that's kind of the model I like to go with. I like the, you know, the crawl, walk, run kind of thing when it comes to Mayday. You know, like one Monday we might be making connections with our, you know, buddy breather hoses with nothing on at all. And then, you know, after we do that 15 times, like now we're, you know, putting our gear on, we're putting our, you know, breathing air. And after we do that 15 times, now we're blacked out. After we do that 15 times, you know, we introduce a new problem. So just constantly building on the skills, making it more stressful, making it more difficult, ultimately to get people in the mindset that, you know, really you have to be able to expect and deal with anything when a Mayday happens. So yeah, I mean, luckily, you know, like 2 weeks ago, I think it was, like, you know, I was working over on the shift after me on the rescue, and like we ended up as the Mayday company, or I should say transmitting a Mayday. You know, we got in a little bit of a tight spot. You know, the guys were able to get themselves out due to some absolutely brilliant thinking, decision-making. Like I can't say enough about what those guys did.
Right.
You know, and it was a direct result of training and being in stressful environments in the training environment. So
you were the officer of the, like, who trained? Was it you that had to ultimately put that across the radio, or?
No, it was the guy, a fireman riding in the back, riding behind our driver. So, you know, occupied garden apartment fire, wind driven like I've never seen before. Like the wind was howling. And I mean, I can legitimately say that we were way behind the 8 ball when we got there. You know, but yeah, like those guys, you know, we ended up having a roof collapse, and those guys' exit got cut off by fire. And collapse, you know, and the firemen called the Mayday. And man, like listening to the radio traffic afterwards, it was as calm as can be. It was concise. It was, you know, clear. Like it was just, you know, for me, like, obviously I hate, you know, we were all in a little bit of a tight spot. I hate, you know, the fact that Mayday happened in general, but like, it was just a shining moment. And like, this is why we do what we do. You know, the fact that this turned out well was not an accident, you know, and this happened, you know, successfully for the same reasons that people don't like us, you know, because we're training constantly, because we have a super high standard for ourselves. But ultimately, like, that's why those guys didn't get hurt, you know, a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, man. Yeah, it was a doozy.
I love what you just said. You said the fact that it turned out okay was no accident.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think more times than not, we go, whoa, that was a close one. Right? Like, and meaning that the outcome was okay and successful because we had a bunch of luck on our side. Yeah. And maybe we then look at that and say, man, maybe we haven't given our people enough, or we need to do more. Right. But the fact that you said the fact that it turned out okay was no accident is a very strong statement, because I don't know. You like to think that everybody would be able to say that about an incident like that. But I know just my own department and myself, there's been a couple times where that was close, you know, like,
Yeah.
and it could have went really sideways, and it didn't. Sure. And we were fortunate, but you know, it's just, it's a comfort in knowing that how important your training and how dialed in your people are to be able to mitigate a problem that arises on the fire ground and puts them in a perilous position to get out of it based upon their experience and knowledge and training is just huge.
Totally, man. And really, and I do think to an extent, like there are times when luck does kind of come into play. Like,
no doubt. I agree with that. I agree.
But in this case, just like in this particular Mayday, like it was mitigated because solely of the quick thinking and decision making of, you know, the guy driving me and the guy riding behind him.
Right.
You know, like the guy driving was, you know, the stairwell was cut off by collapse from the roof collapse. He had no other way out. And he told the fireman, like, hey, man, call the Mayday. And as he was calling the Mayday, like he had the wherewithal to take his bar and beat out the spindles of the third floor railing. And he made a hole just big enough for both of them to be able to dive down onto the second floor landing. Like, you know, all of this stuff is going on. Like it's, you know, they've got unchecked fire above them. They've got a collapse above them. Like they need to get out. And like the fact that, you know, the fireman was able to call the Mayday as clearly and concisely as he did. And the driver, you know, was just constantly making that forward progress to get themselves out of that situation was just like, I don't know. I just can't say enough good things about it.
No, I get that, man. And a couple things that I think about, you know, one, I don't think a lot of departments talk about Mayday enough. I think that that's something that needs to be constantly drilled, and it doesn't mean that you have to convert harnesses and do all these crazy fucking carries. It means educate your people how to call a Mayday, when to call a Mayday. Typically, most Maydays are called too late into the whatever the problem is, right? Yeah. And then the other thing too is we got to teach our people to fight like hell. You know, you gotta rescue yourself, and you know, these are those little things that you know, I don't think are talked about enough. I think we get too carried away when we do Mayday training about harnesses and removals and creating a 2-to-1 pole device, like all this bullshit that, like, frankly, you know, if it's needed, you're going to have extra companies there that are going to deploy those type of things. I mean, you know, and you got to talk about self-rescue. You got to talk about when to call the Mayday, recognizing why you need the Mayday, things like that. I think we just need to do a better job of.
Well, and we don't let people fail in training because that is like some kind of like written in a book somewhere. It says you can't do that. But I remember being out west at a conference and one of the instructors was talking about they did RIT fast, whatever nomenclature you want to use, but they did a drill where it was designed to push the companies to their edge, and like they were going to have to make a choice of whether they were going to continue to search for a downed firefighter and bump themselves off on the RIT pack or give up. And then they trapped them in there just to see like if they would have the wherewithal to say like, holy shit, we can't get out of here. And now we're in a jam. And like everybody thought they were insane for doing it. Some people were like, this is screwed up. You're putting us in the wrong headspace, but like it can happen. Mm-hmm. And I think all the time it's always like I shouldn't say all the time, but I've seen a lot of congratulations, guys, you did it. And it's a scripted emergency. It's a scripted drill, you know? And like what you touched on, Jeremy, about the guys got to fight, like fighting comes when you lose. Like you get your ass kicked a couple times and you either learn how to fight better or you stay out of conflicts. So two things can happen from that. And I think people got to kind of push the realism a little bit. So
totally.
I get it. No, you're there. So what's next for you? I mean, you're involved. I mean, obviously really dialed into the job. You know, you got plenty of years left for you.
Yes, sir.
But I know you're doing some external training too, which is important to you, right? Sharing your experience and knowledge. You want to talk about that at all?
Oh yeah, man. Like I super into the rope thing. Like we talked about, I do some teaching with Rescue 2 training, which is run by Kelly Byrne, who's a squad driver, rescue squad driver in DC. Just like the guy is easily the smartest rope guy like I've ever come across probably like I'll probably ever come across. And so working with him is really cool. He's developed a lot of new techniques that, a lot of people are using for elevator hoistway rescues, really delving into using ladder trucks for rope rescue, and just in general, using all of the, the plethora of new rope equipment that's out there, that people are buying, without necessarily the training behind it. So yeah, I'm teaching with him and Rescue 2 training, and man, it's a blast. Like I love it. Like I really strongly believe in the message that, Kelly and Rescue 2 training is putting out there. So, I have a good time with it.
Yeah. And I got to think, I mean, you're surrounding yourself with people on the instructor staff that are passionate about it like you are. And then you guys aren't going out and teaching, it's not like teaching forcible entry where every fireman just signs up for the class. It's, these are people that are there to truly learn this discipline.
Yeah, man. Like it's a blast. Like we just got back from teaching fire department in Clarksville, Tennessee, about 45 minutes west of Nashville. And these guys just formed a brand new heavy rescue squad on May 1st and, wanted some rope training and, just to be able to go in there with Kelly and another gentleman from DC as well, and teach those guys, like just to teach with other guys that are as into it as I am, and to be able to give that message to, these students in the class who they want to be super good at it. They're super motivated. Like it was just all around a blast, to have, that level of motivation and interest in the skill, man. It was so much fun.
So so I got to ask then, I mean, you opened a door here. So how did I want to start my, a new rescue company? Or I have an existing rescue, but we're just doing your standard extrication stuff, elevator rescue, shit like that. But I want to get into ropes. I want to start dabbling in some of the disciplines of heavy rescue or tech rescue. You got some recommendations? I mean, I'm sure some people that are going to listen to this be like, oh yeah, we've toyed with this, and I've seen too departments that take on we're going to start a trench. We got a trailer on a grant and we got panels and ventilation and struts. So we're a trench team now.
Right.
Maybe you can hit on some of that because I just, there's, how important and some of the factors that people have to really consider before they start opening up a discipline like this.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, long term, you got to think about equipment needs and obviously cost. And then like people are the most important part of that equation. Like long term, how are you, like what's your plan to get a large amount of people trained up to an initial, operational level, and then even farther than that to the technician level. And then once everybody's there, how do you maintain their skills, on a yearly basis? So, like what I would say is obviously for most of us, the state fire training organizations are pretty much where we're all going to get that initial training. But what I would say to team leaders out there and guys making these decisions, man, like seek out some of these training companies that are out there. Now, obviously like everything, there's a dichotomy there, right? Like you got to be careful because everyone's got something to sell, right? But there are a lot of really good, companies that are teaching tech rescue stuff, collapse, trench, rope, swift water stuff, if that's what you're into as well. And the beauty of taking training with these companies is they're not bound by the curriculum of a state fire training organization. That's where you're going to get the latest and greatest, the cutting edge, the current best practice in all of these disciplines. So
what's the time frame? So like Jeremy's brought up this point. So now you want to get into like, let's say ropes. How long, like what's the time frame for somebody to expect to get them to operational to technician status just in something like rope rescue? You're looking at a couple months, a year?
Yeah, man. I mean, at least for us, it's totally dependent on when the state offers those classes. They've been as soon as back to back, and they've been as far apart as a year apart from each other. The danger of doing it super quick is like doing anything super quick. If you get a guy that goes from, nothing, the awareness level to technician level in rope rescue, let's say within 2 months time, like you've got a guy that just learned how to effectively tie his shoes, that's out there building high lines now, so like anything, you want to give it some time to let things marinate and, put into practice what you learned and, like get a good solid foundation at your current level, before you move on. So. Yeah, man.
I'll tell you, it is a hell of a burden for a department and on its people. And I think, you said it the best, it's people. Departments can get equipment and have the latest and greatest, but you got to have the people that are disciplined and dialed in to be able to effectively perform these disciplines. And, I think that's got to be one of the biggest factors in all of it. So, and I think that's why too, you see a lot of these disciplines across the country are basically done by a regional team, because you can pull from a large source of people, and some of the best people from different areas and put them together to put together a good team. So
Totally.
So what's this? So you got the private training, which is fun, and I hope that continues for you and you guys get busier and busier as COVID is starting to wind down. But what's next for you? I mean, is the rescue where it is, or do you have ambitions to as your career moves on, or who knows?
Man, like 98% of the time, I just want to be a really good rescue guy, a good rescue lieutenant. Like I want to do that. I think we could all agree that we have our days that we're super frustrated with how things are going. Why can't these policies advance forward? Why can't we get this done? Whatever. And, you start getting these crazy thoughts like, oh, maybe I'll go ride a ladder truck or something. But no, man, like I want to do the rescue thing like that.
Awesome.
That I really do feel like that, that's where my home is and what I'd like to think I'm decent at it. But, I just want to hone in on that for however long I can.
Very cool, man. Well, I mean, I wish you all the success in the world. We're approaching that time that we tend to start to wrap. But I mean,
yeah,
what's that?
I said, yeah, right on, man. Like I
want to make sure that, we got everything that you wanted to share. And I'll tell you, it was a fantastic conversation tonight. I really enjoyed you and getting to know you through this. I keep notes as we go, and you had a couple good one-liners tonight that I enjoyed. Spin my gears was a couple times, by the way, tonight. And my other one, cup of coffee hasn't even brewed yet. It's probably one of my favorites, man. That's probably one of my favorites.
I can't claim ownership to that. Like I understand. Yeah, I had a guy in the firehouse giving a new guy a hard time one day, and I'm like, did he just? He said that? Like that's
a good one, man.
To remember that. Yeah.
I will. I'll cite you, and then you can cite Tim, and then we'll own the custody that way for sure. But brother, thank you for joining us tonight, man. Great awesome conversation. We truly appreciate it. Rob, well done, sir. Well done.
The one thing I was disappointed with, I forgot to ask, was just your transition when you got promoted to lieutenant and you were assigned on an engine for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was. That was cool too, man.
Right there, you're like, yeah.
You know what, man? Like I'll always have love for the engine company, right? Like they are the backbone of the fire service. Nothing happens without them.
They put the fire out.
And doing that part of thing, part of the fire department was fun. Like it was a good time, but like I had to get back to the rescue thing. Like that's just too much time invested and too much interest and passion in it to not do that. So.
Oh yeah. I knew that was going to be short-lived. So
yeah, man. Yep.
I love it. Rob, any last words, brother, before we wrap?
I'm happy Ilowite was able to come out here with us on the Zoom tonight. This is awesome. I'm happy that we finally got you to pop your Zoom cherry after this whole pandemic, I think.
Late in the pandemic, but here I am, Zoom Pro.
Well, I wish you nothing but the best success in the world for you and a solid career. And it's always nice to meet guys that, I enjoy talking with, because you're dialed in and you get it. And that's what this is about. And we got to spread that love and spread that feeling. So it's good, pal. I appreciate it, Jason, for being here tonight. I really do. For all of our listeners and so on, where can they find you? If they have any questions, they want to reach out. Are you an open book? Can people find you?
Oh, totally, man. Like I'm a millennial, so I'm on the Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. No crazy names, just my name. Like that's how you can find me. So yeah, that's it, man. Like I love talking shop with whoever, and like I'd be happy to do that.
I love it, man. Thank you. And promote the company one more time that you're doing work with now, that you're working with.
It's Rescue 2 Training.
Okay.
They're you know, that you could find, you know, quick Google search. There's a website as well. There's a Facebook page. Yep. So if you ever have some interest in getting dialed in on some modern rope stuff like that, that's the way to go for sure.
I love it, man. Thank you. And again, thank you. Yeah, don't disappear. We're gonna cut out in a minute, but stay on with us. But to everybody watching and listening, thank you so much for again hopping in tonight. Lieutenant Jason Ilowite out of Loudon County, Virginia. Brother, thank you for being here tonight. What a great conversation. And if you don't get fired up and excited about the job after conversations like this, you better go check it again, because you know, the love and the passion comes through, and there's a lot to be said for that. So keep the job real, enjoy it, and thanks for tuning in. Robert, thanks for being here again also, pal. Always a pleasure.
No problem.
Thanks, man. Guys, take care. Thanks for watching. Hey, guys, thanks for tuning in this week and listening to another episode on the National Fire Radio podcast channels. We truly appreciate the support. We thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to our interviews, our roundtables, our discussions. It means the world. Like, share, leave a comment. The more we engage, the more we can grow and push the word out and keep making this job better.